scene.
There won't be time to samba on the beach. Our drivers will be well occupied with other things at this Brazilian track as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Porsche Owners Club series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Alex Goldschmidt. Behind the scenes is our director, Christian Duploy, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. For anyone that needs a refresher on this popular F1 course, let's head to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to Autodromos Jose Carlos Pache. Most fans and drivers simply know this place as Interlagos. Starting life as an absolute behemoth of a circuit, this Brazilian track was eventually truncated to the version you see today. Having hosted Formula One for roughly 3 decades, it's become very well known on the international stage. But it has also held rounds in the World Endurance Championship, as well as frequently seen Brazilian stock cars, motorcycles, and even truck racing. There's little difference between its 2 layouts, which includes the GP course and the Moto course, which simply adds a chicane to the end of the lap. In both cases, it's a tale of 2 circuits. The run past the start-finish line and into the Senna S, followed by the blast towards the Descida do Lago, are very high-speed sections that come back-to-back. Drivers will need to focus on top end in order to attack or defend. Expect most passes to happen in those 2 corners. But from Ferradura until Juchao, the track suddenly twists itself into a mess of hairpins and frustratingly technical turns. This can make car setup a real compromise, and for the latter part of the lap, an absolute pain when dealing with traffic. Pit exit is also a narrow affair, so it requires drivers to take care when trying to maximize their outlaps. On the upside, with this being a modern F1 track, there's paved runoff in abundance at many of the fast corners. The passion of the Brazilian fans always comes out in force at races, and it's no wonder with this picturesque track sandwiched right amongst the neighborhoods of Sao Paulo. One thing that this place always has going for it, Alex, is it just almost always seems to put on a show.
It does, and I had the opportunity of doing the Porsche Endurance Cup Brazil last year, where they run the 500 kilometers of Interlagos for 177 laps. This track always has great flat-out, close-quarter battling, especially when you get to turn 4 at the Descida do Lago. Then you go uphill to the Ferradura to Junção complex, where it is going to be side-by-side. These drivers are really going to be pushing hard in these Porsche 992.2 Cup cars. So it'll be interesting to see how the strategies work out over the 40-minute race we've got tonight, Joe.
Especially how do they want to try and set up the car as well with the way that the track kind of splits itself up. But we have 1 round done, which means we actually have a few championship points on the board, but they pretty much sit as they finished on the last race. Blake Sams up at the top with BJ Fulton in second, Bolton third, and then Scott and Momeyer rounding out your top 5. A couple new names have jumped in. Sams, of course, as we mentioned, Yoshiki Tani also jumping in here this season. And hopefully we'll continue to see all kinds of fresh faces start to arrive and bring some new blood and some fun into this series. Besides the standings, though, why don't we head over to the race details real quick and show how that is.
Yep, and with the Porsche Owners Club, founded back in 1955, it's round 2 out of 13. It's a 40-minute sprint race. There will be a mandatory pit stop based on fuel. We're running in the brand new Porsche 992.2 911 Cup car. So the GT3 moniker has been thrown over to the sports car realm, so thank goodness for that. We're going to be doing a rolling start here. Every driver has 2 spare cars at their disposal.
Before we get to the qualifying that is live right now, I want to give a quick mention to our sponsors, which includes Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com. And Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. Contact them today at TopGunMG.com. That's TopGunMG.com. We've got about a minute and a half left to go for our qualifying, but for a few minutes now, it has definitely been firmly in the hands of Blake Sams up on the pole position. It was so close for a brief while, and then suddenly he obliterated everybody else and is now nearly 4 tenths ahead of the next car, which is BJ Fulton.
Yeah, and one of the big things that the drivers might have to contend with here tonight, Joe, is the track temperature. We're hitting 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 38 degrees centigrade. So tire degradation could also be a potential factor. Overcast with the wind 4 miles an hour to the south. Of course, the pudding bowl aspect that we have here at Interlagos means that rain can come in at any given moment. So it is just all about that case of, as you said, setup's going to be crucial. You don't want to have a car that's going to be too aggressive on tyres, but here at Interlagos, with that combination of the mid-part technicality and also the opportunity to really run the legs out on these flat 6 boxer engines, which have about 15 more horsepower than the outgoing 992.1 Cup cars, which are still going to be run in many of the 35 one-make series that Porsche Motorsport are behind around the globe, including the Sprint Challenge North America, Sports Cup Suisse, and so many others. But yeah, you're going to see here is a big old spin in front of Blake Sams, who's coming through in towards turn 15, which is known as Arquibagandas, the bleachers, and you can see our virtual fans in the grandstands have lined up the tribunes pretty much full to bursting. But can Blake Sams go quicker on this particular occasion? That's a big no. 1 minute 34.1, but it was 66 thousandths at one point between the top 3. So we might have, well, we have a foreboding feeling, you and I, Joe, that Blake might try and run away with it, and then it's the scraps for the dinner table for second place that'll be battled out all race long.
Yeah, and we can't count it out quite yet, but it's not looking good if you're anybody else, as we watch Alan Watts now, currently sitting in at 12th, quickest time of a 1:36.08. So can he improve this time by? Needs about half a second to get up to Mark Morales there in 11th place. Let's see if he can overtake the number 99 car as he comes towards the line. Remember, this is before they updated that pit entry, so it does jut out quite a bit. He'll cross, and he does not improve. He will stay P12.
Yeah, and that concludes our qualifying session for round 2 out of 13 here at Interlagos. A great track, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens going down the Retro-Aposta for the first time, Joe.
Same. It's always exciting, not just into the Senna S, but there into the Descida del Lago when they're heading towards their at speed. And Blake Sams will at least lead them down at the front towards that turn 1 from the pole. BJ Fulton will start outside of him. From there, it is Dylan Scott starting in P3 with Jad Duncan in the 4th position. Robert Leclerc will be P5. Michael Bolton starts 6th today. Dustin Heindel will be P7, and Mark Rondeau completes that 4th row. Christopher Marciniak, he'll start 9th with Adam Abrams in the 10th position. From there, just a couple more cars as Mark Morales will start in 11th, Alan Watts in 12th, Larry Haas 13th, and while we have a small technical glitch, that is Jim Garamani, who is starting in the 163 car on 14th today. 14 drivers taking to the track for round 2. And I'm curious if we do get more sun than what we've got right now, because it is quite overcast. 100 degrees Fahrenheit on the track surface without the sun shining on it. That's pretty greasy.
Yeah, and the track temperature has changed in the meantime, Joe. We're at 93 degrees Fahrenheit for the track temp, that's 34 Celsius. 26 degree air, that's Celsius, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and then still overcast. So with overcast, as I said just a few moments ago in the latter part of qualifying, that when it rains here in Sao Paulo, it pours.
It does. The good news for the drivers is that I'm looking at the weather predictions and I see no cloud or, well, no precipitation being predicted up until about an hour and a half from now. And that the race will be definitely over by the time we get to that point. So, should stay dry. That will hopefully help them out a bit, but I can't imagine there's going to be much grip out on the track, even at 93 Fahrenheit on the surface. Looks like we just about have everybody gridded up and ready to go. They'll have a short pace lap as they'll just take it through the infield and then they'll be on their way. This 40-minute race, let's not forget, will include at least one pit stop for fuel. So that is something strategically the drivers will have to keep in mind.
Yeah, and it can be quite a fuel-thirsty circuit here at Interlagos as the Porsche pace car now leads the field away. I mean, remember when we were, I think, what was it we were at last time? I'm trying to remember the track.
Spa.
It was Spa, and Blake Sams got the whole shot and mugged everyone going into La Source from fourth on the grid and then got the W. But this time, it's the case that he's going to be at the front end of the field and he's going to have everyone trying to charge into the Center S's alongside and maybe even past him. But it's a downhill descent with a very, very vicious left-hand camber into that first left-hander. So Blake's got to have his eyeballs on a swivel tonight.
No doubt. It certainly invites drivers to be aggressive, especially at the start, knowing it could wind up being difficult to make passes. I don't anticipate it being super hard because, as we mentioned, they will have the slipstream helping them up out of this corner here that they're approaching, the junction, and on towards the first corner. And then, of course, out of the Senna S, or the Curva de Sol, really, turn 3, down the Reta Aposta into the Descida del Lago. So, two main spots where we're expecting drivers to attempt passes, but you can get creative elsewhere. So keep your eyes peeled because mistakes can happen and everybody will be eager to pounce. As it looks like the Porsche pace car getting ready to give way and allow Sam's control. It should not be a long hold this time as the start-finish line is pretty closely after that pit entry. There it goes. It's in. Sam's now waiting for the call, and there it is. Green flag is out. He does not get the best of starts, though. BJ Fulton round the outside already has a nose ahead coming down into the Senna S. Deeper on the brakes for Blake Sams as he once again charges forward, takes the lead back. Dylan Scott now challenging BJ for P2.
Yeah, Rob Leclerc quickly got past Jad Duncan going through into turn 2 as they go into the Curva de Sol for the first time. Then this long blast down the Reta Aposta as all big into the barriers. I think that was Rob Leclerc, and he spun across the circuit and nearly got collected in the meantime. But Jad Duncan was late on the brakes into turn 4 at the first part of Descida del Lago. So Rob Leclerc, mechanical black flag, is going to have to pull that into pit lane, and he's already taken the tow.
That's one of his spare cars definitely eating up Marc Rondeau with some heavy damage because of that as well. I think he was the other car that we saw making the contact. Both of them going to have to use that car waiting in the pit lane pretty quickly. Looks like Garamani overtaken by Marciniak. Jim made up a number of spots there at the start of this race, but loses one as Chris moves into 10th spot.
Yeah, it's getting very, very close indeed between the likes of Watts and Abrams there. Well, Adam Abrams in P7. He's up 3 spots, having started on the outside of row 5. And he's got Alan Watts behind him in that lovely silver machine, the number 13, as they come through out of Subida's boxes on the run to Arquibacandas, the bleachers, as another lap will be in the books. But Blake Sams already, within the first 2 laps, has bridged a gap of about 0.8 of a second between himself and the, as always, wonderfully Martini liveried car of BJ Fulton. Dylan Scott with the head of steam on the 82 as they go down the hill through the Senna S's again here on lap 3. You can see that Chad Duncan's being very, very patient. He got a little bit over exuberant with the brakes going into Desida de Lago as Dylan Scott runs wide coming out of Curva de Sol as we ride on board with the Australian. But again, BJ Fulton just trying to break the toe into Desida de Lago. It doesn't quite really work there, to be honest.
No, not this time. Keeping them well within range. It's still only about 6 to 7 tenths between BJ and Blake. So he's also keeping him in check. If he gets any closer, he could get a shot on some of these long straightaways. Oh, look at the strength of the second apex there for Dylan Scott trying to cover the inside. The door is still open. Scott able to get wheel to wheel with BJ Fulton. It carries on into the left-hander as they scythe through the infield, but no dice. BJ will rebuff him.
So they go into Pico de Pato, the Duck's Beak, and then down the hill into Margulo before Junsao, and then it's that big run up the hill. And one of the big things about it is the altitude here at Sao Paulo is also a factor that you have to consider, and that can affect naturally aspirated and turbocharged engines. Thank goodness that Porsche, in its infinite wisdom with the 992.2 Cup car, kept with the naturally aspirated flat 6 boxer engine, pushing around about 515 horsepower. And we get this wonderful onboard shot thanks to our director Christian Deploy of the haze of the exhaust fumes coming out of the tailpipes from BJ Fulton as Dylan Scott goes to the outside, throws the Hail Mary, runs a little bit deep. This could open the door for Chad Duncan, who might get the inside line for turn 3, but not quite.
They're still very close to one another. I think that Chad Duncan now has a good chance at trying to go on the attack. No, it looks like Dylan Scott also has a huge toe off BJ Fulton. Down to the inside from Chad Duncan. Both of them going wide in front of him, maybe just trying to give him a bit of room. Not sure if he'd make the corner. He does, but he also doesn't get the spot. In fact, now he's got Dustin Heindel. That's the 117 that you see on the attack.
Too far behind them is also Michael Bolton, so the battle for second is effectively becoming rather quickly a quintet here of drivers that are really trying to show their mettle. But meantime, whilst they're battling away, this has allowed Blake Sams to check out to the tune of nearly 2.5 seconds after what will be lap number 4. So we'll have a little bit of a replay coming up now, just to showcase some of the on-track action that we've had. And this is the incident. Rob Leclerc goes to turn right, and then all of a sudden, no. That was the impact for Marc Rondeau, and the front end gets an absolute pummeling. So both cars with their front ends rearranged.
Yeah, both of them appear to be back out on track, but Rob is a lap down due to him taking a tow. Mark was able to get back, but he still owes us a regular pit stop. Bolton versus Heindel. This is for 5th position. Looks like Dustin trying to just give a little bit of dissuasion on Michael Bolton, covering that inside line, and there will be no change for position. That purple car, I think, in the replay, that may have been Chad Duncan making the contact with Rob.
Yeah, I think you might be right. As picture-in-picture, we've got Larry Haas in 11th, and he's being closed in on by the 163 of Jim Garamani. Jim's now sporting the WeatherTech logos on both doors of the car as Michael Bolton dives through at turn 4 at Desida de Lago through on Dustin Heindel and now picks up the 5th position, and now we'll start chasing down the 3 in front. Nicely
done. Very textbook move by Bolton. Let's see if he can get any higher than this. It does look like Dustin's at least keeping him within sight here after that overtake down into the Essa and the Pinorino, as it's just a slow and technical part of the circuit. But you can see there's quite a bit of change in camber in many of the corners into the Ducks Bill. He has to guard the inside. He clearly has not got the job fully done with Dustin Heindel, who is just hassling him.
Well, we saw how Dustin was very, very capable. He adapted very quickly to the Cup car when we had the one-off fun race at the tail end of last year at the Miami International Autodrome, which were 2 exciting sprint races. But now Dylan Scott is going to get ahead of steam through Arquibacandas, the bleachers here at turn 15, and look how close they were to the wall. Scott has got a head of steam behind Fulton, and he sticks his nose towards the inside. But I think it was a case of he looked at it, went, can I make that move? Not quite, and decided to stay behind BJ. So discretion being the better part of valor on that attempted overtake.
Dylan taking the fastest lap that time by. He is looking quick. We know he can be from what we saw last season. He takes a little bit of a peek down into the lake descent, decides against it, still holding on to the back of BJ Fulton. This is all about 2.5 seconds behind Blake Sams, our leader. So not a massive gap up in front, but enough that he's scooted away just a bit.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, reference pit lane strategy, is you've got a very, very short exit. But, Dylan Scott nearly got through, and that would have been a little bit further down the circuit, round about La Regina and Esse, before they go into Pico de Pato, and Dylan dives to the inside. BJ throws it around the outside to counter. Gets the left-hander here at Margulo. They're going to be wheel-to-wheel, but Dylan Scott has got about half a car length ahead as they come out of... They will go through Jungsau very shortly. And then, well, Dylan's made the move. That was absolute commitment from the Aussie, and just decided, you know what, I'm going to keep this car here. I'll wait to see what BJ does. And, you know, they gave each other enough racing room, and that shows the amount of respect, because these guys know each other very, very well, and what they want to do is play hard but play fair at the same time.
We have to remember they not only share the track here in the virtual world, but they race against each other in real life as well. Multiple dates that the POC takes part in. No reaction there from BJ Fulton and try to fight back into turn one. He'll stay back in P2, but they're being caught once again by Jad Duncan after that little bit of squabbling. So that's not good for BJ now that he's got a driver ever closer behind him. Gap is 3.7 up to Blake Sams. We'll see whether or not he can start to catch up to him. I think there's been problems for Alan Watts because I see him dropping down the order.
That's not it. Well, he was running, what, top 7, top 8 just a handful of moments ago, so Alan struck trouble. So we've got a replay coming up, and this is what will happen of Alan. Oh, he's lost it coming out into Curva de Sol out of turn 2. And it has to hold his brakes and wait because it's he just rotates it again, just rejoining. Oh, well, that just goes to show how difficult it is, because that runoff area off of the outside of turn 3 is quite abrasive anyway.
Just glad that he didn't spin any farther onto the track with more cars coming along. Meanwhile, Jad Duncan probably looking a little bit more appreciative now that those two had that back and forth. Still holding on to BJ Fulton out of the junction and up the hill past the water tower, past Subidos dos Boxes, and across the start-finish line. He's not close enough. He's not pulled in to where he can make an attack down into turn 1, at least this time.
One of the good things is that the track temperature is actually dropping, Joe. It's gone down to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius. So a little bit of cooler air will help not just the engines to breathe, but also to keep those tyres in check a little bit better as we hit a quarter of the way through, 10 minutes down, 30 to go, and still Blake Sams is leading the way. But like I said, with that long pit lane exit, you know, it's a short run coming through out of turn 15 at Alquibacandas, and you instantly pull left. And then it's more the case of you've got a very, very long run. You're going to come out on the actual exit of Curva de Sol and onto Reto Aposta. So you've absolutely got to gun the throttle big time, but make sure you don't tangle with the pit exit barriers on your way out, because that can cost you a heap of time here at Interlagos.
Worth noting, I checked, Dylan Scott 0.2 of a second quicker than Blake Sams last time by. BJ Fulton about the same time as Blake Sams, but it looks like he's picked up the pace a little bit, because now I'd swear he's much closer this time out of this final real corner that we have on the track and charging up the hill. Will we see an attack coming into the Senna S?
This is going to be very, very interesting, as Jad Duncan, I think, has just had to serve a slowdown, 150 miles an hour. And yeah, he went off. So BJ Fulton at nearly 160 miles an hour in the braking zone manages to try and get through on Dylan Scott, but Dylan parks the car exactly on the racing line through the turn 1 of the Senna S's. And now it's, again, BJ Fulton just trying to use that acceleration, that sheer grunt of that 4.2 litre naturally aspirated flat 6 down the Reto Aposta to try and get through. But Dylan is just parking the car. He's got the right of way. He's got absolutely every possibility to do that himself.
clearly that slipstream adds a lot on lap time. He was now set a lap 0.2 quicker than anybody else that time by. Was not able to convert it into an overtake, though. And there we saw the replay of Jad Duncan going off, and it looks like the junction there. So Michael Bolton sneaking through into fourth and no longer in the battle for that second spot. Let's see, 0.3 quicker that last time by for Scott over Sam. So even though he's been under attack, he is still reeling in the number 4.
Yeah, and BJ Fulton did a 1:33.257, so it was a tenth that was quite a bit quicker than Dylan's. So they are starting to slowly reel in the number 4, who's still continuing to lead as we're about to complete lap number 9. So I think it's all going to come down to pit stops, and that's going to be quite crucial because Blake's got no one to assist him. BJ's got, I think, probably the best opportunity of a good strategy call because he's staying behind Dylan, even though he is being aggressive in his overtaking and attacking. There's an opportunity that maybe BJ Fulton might be the person to go a little bit longer on that fuel and maybe try for the undercut.
That little bit of side-by-side action they had into turn 1 last time did slow them up. This, for the first time in a couple laps now, they were slower than P1. Sam's, once again, stretching his legs out, trying to see if he can make it 2 for 2 at the start of the season. There you can see him, and we saw a little flash of the two of them in the background. So they've probably got a little bit of visual, but not on many of the straights at this point.
No, and they'd rather try and keep that gap being closed as, well, the gap has come down to about 2.7 seconds between Blake and Dylan, but it's on the long straightaways where Blake able to just really get the traction down early and put the power down and then get out of those corners. And looking at it, well, Blake Sams nearly lost a second in the middle sector, a 34 aught dead on the nose for Dylan Scott, who's absolutely roaring around the circuit. So that gap is coming down. So Blake now, I think, I'm not too sure if he's not struggling by any stretch of the imagination, but to lose a second in the middle sector is a big, big loss.
Exactly. I was trying to see if he made a major mistake, and I couldn't find anything on my screen trying to rewind. So that seems unusual. Last lap at 34.4. That is definitely slow compared to what he was doing before. And yeah, that makes up 0.7 of a second for Dylan Scott. He's cut it down to roughly 3 seconds now. A couple more of those, and he's going to be on him sooner than you think. Maybe even before they get to the pit stops. Meanwhile, Jad Duncan on a recovery. He is on the back of Michael Bolton. A little bit of a peak, but nothing doing into turn 4 wide from Bolton. Could open the door, though.
Yeah, but it's going to put Duncan on the outside, coming through in towards Ferradura here at turn 6. But Duncan is still going to try and go for it, but the inside line is the shorter part of it. So Michael Bolton still hangs on by a finger thread in that 4th place number 127 Porsche. So from that perspective, I think Michael will not want to do that again coming out of the Cida de Lago.
Certainly not. It's a tough turn, the way it just falls away from you. And I think he made a good example of that. Still has Jad Duncan very close behind. This perhaps the most important corner on the track. Junsao onto the main straight. Can he get the launch to get the overtake done on Michael Bolton? It does look solid. They start to pick up speed once again, flying towards the start-finish line. Was it enough?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question, and Jad is trying to use as much of the track as possible, and here comes the overspeed to the inside at the center S as he goes later on the brakes in comparison with Michael Bolton, who's still to his outside. Then it's the right-hander coming up, which Bolton has the advantage of, clips the curb with the right rear, and Duncan gets through. So Bolton with that right rear touching the outside curb made the car make a misstep, and Jad Duncan went, right, okay, that's my move done and dusted, but now he's got to worry about the fact that he's become the hunted again.
In the meantime, though, a nice slam dunk for Duncan as he takes that P4 away, 5.6 seconds behind BJ Fulton. It tells you how much he lost in that initial issue that set him back here. While those have just basically run away with that second spot. This is just about to the halfway point. We may see a couple takers into the pits farther down the order. Do not anticipate many of our front runners to pit this early, but things should start kicking off strategy-wise here shortly.
Yeah, looking at the sector times, quickest in Sector 1 was Dylan Scott, quickest in Sector 2 was BJ Fulton, and that gap between Blake and Dylan now, Joe, has dropped to just under 2.5 seconds. So it seems like Dylan Scott has managed to find some pace in that opening sector, and if he can light up the timesheets purple a little bit here in the final sector, well, he does a 36.150. Blake a 36.582. So gap now down to 2.2 seconds. And it looks like that Blake, being all on his own, like he has been for pretty much the majority of the first half of this race, and now they've got back marker traffic. And we've seen this before, Joe, where back marker traffic can play into the game.
Exactly. That's Alan Watts a little bit up the road. He's lapping the 136s. So, yeah, I think it might be a lap or two before they do catch up to him, as we once again go side by side. Duncan versus Bolton. Somehow he managed to get a nose ahead, at least briefly, but he has to return it to Jad once again. So Michael and Jad putting on a show here.
Yeah, and I think the show is going to further increase in intensity if we see that when Dylan manages to catch up to Blake at the front end of the field. I mean, Dylan's still bringing along BJ Fulton for the ride in P3, so, but nevertheless, BJ Fulton has got the fastest lap of the race at 1:33.257. That's a pretty competitive lap time here around at Interlagos in these cars. So it's more the case of how do you play the strategy game now, as we are a minute and a quarter away from hitting half time here at Interlagos. So when are those pit stops going to be happening? The track temperature has dropped again, Joe. It's 80. Well, it's gone down by 1 degree Fahrenheit, which is not much in the scheme of things. But you wonder when someone's going to make that dive into pit road and go, right, okay, you know what? I'm fed up of where I'm stuck. Let's see if I can undercut a few people. But no one's decided to light the touch paper yet to do so.
One thing we do have to remember is that they're unlikely to take tires, as that will slow down your pit stop. So the undercut won't necessarily be fresh rubber. It would be just mostly clean air if you're stuck behind somebody, like we could be seeing with Michael Bolton. But these two do seem to be relatively closely matched on pace. Hard to tell how much of it is the slipstream coming down the long straightaways. It's keeping them hanging on.
I mean, you're looking at the pace between Michael and Jad. They're running in the low 135s, and then you're seeing the three up front. I mean, BJ Fulton just did a 33.7, Scott a 34.0, Sam's a mid 34.1, and again we're just seeing that first sector is where Dylan seems to be making up a lot of his time, and that's quite crucial, because it's more about momentum carrying, whereas with the technicality of the mid-sector, that's where Blake seems to really claw a little bit of that time back. But it's that final sector that when you're in clear air, you're going to find, and you're on your own, you've got no assist whatsoever. And that's the big thing. Blake has just calmly controlled the pace. He hasn't gone flat out all guns blazing and firing on all cylinders. He's just decided, right, okay, what window do I need to be in to stick ahead of Dylan and BJ when I come out of pit road? And that's going to be the big question, as BJ goes a little bit wide coming out of Curve de Sol there.
That time by, Blake Sams did outpace them by just roughly 1/10 of a second. He's trying to pick it up. I think he's aware that those two pose a bit of a threat unless he keeps himself a good clip out there. And have they passed that lapped car yet, actually? Just trying to see. I don't see it in front of them anymore, so I wonder if Alan Watts maybe had his pit stop just recently. No, it doesn't look like he did, so I wonder if they just passed him when we weren't looking, as he just allowed by Jad Duncan and Michael Bolton, it appears.
Now the gap is really coming down, so another 7.5+ tenths of a second lost by Blake in the middle part of the track in Sector 2. So that gap has come down to 1.3. And now that Dylan can firmly concentrate on Blake having gotten away from BJ, so the gap is 1.4 seconds between first and second. It's encroaching on 1.3, so we've always known that Dylan will get into that kind of groove in the first half of the race, and in the second half it really becomes his own, and he really picks up the mantle, and he just puts in a 1:33.664, a second quicker than Blake. So Blake now knows that Dylan is not shy of pushing that car to the limit, but we have seen it before, as Michael Bolton is the first one to decide to take his mandatory stop. And this is where we find that Dylan, you know, he has this sort of like second wind, doesn't he? That he'll go, right, okay, let's just play the game and see how the car comes to me. And, you know, from going from the GT3Rs that we had last season for our top tier class to now everyone being in the same vehicle, it's meant that they've had to relearn everything again, but use some of the aspects of the GT3Rs as their skill set to really get a grip of these cup cars. And it's great to see that someone like Dylan, who we know is really rapid, is going to have that as Alan goes for a spin again at turn 2.
I think that's where he had problems earlier, if I remember right. So definitely a bit of a bugbear today. Bad news for Michael Bolton. That pit stop released him directly behind Adam Abrams, and now is having to overtake him. This is the other problem. If you pit early, you better be careful about where you're going to emerge onto the track. Does he get the pass done? He does. Adams does not fight it too hard.
I think he kind of knew that, well, my race is not against Michael Bolton. It's going to be against the likes of Blake Sams now pits. So that is with 16.25 minutes left to go. So Dylan Scott will now be released. And BJ Fulton just about a second behind him. But, oh, good thing, Blake, your pit stop is right at the end of the stalls here at Interlagos. So be a shorter run for him when he comes out of pit road. But where is that going to bring him more to the point? And he's 11.5 seconds on his marks in the pit lane. Michael Bolton only fueled up for 9.9 seconds, so whether Michael might be a little bit short on fuel is anyone's guess, as Mark Morales now pits. And it is the case of Dylan Scott and BJ Fulton. They now need to really get a grip of the cars. BJ goes quicker in the first sector by 0.2 of a second, so whether they're going to pit on this lap or maybe another, they need to make it count here at Interlagos, as BJ goes a little bit wide, but still that gap is coming down, so they might be marginal on fuel and might be trying to push to get those cars in as quickly as possible, Joe.
Bad news for Morales is he sped in pit lane, so he's serving a penalty as he gets his service, and will probably emerge quite a ways behind from where he came in. More problems with Alan Watts in that same corner, potentially. Oh, a little bit before it this time, and he found the wall, sadly. So Watts might be out of the race, it looks like.
Yeah, it was a hard hit, and instantly towed straight back to pit road. So Dylan and BJ are going to stay out for another lap. So it's early here in the United Kingdom. That's my excuse. It's 4:40 in the morning, but nevertheless, they're pulling each other along. So there's a little bit of tactics working here. We know how aggressive these two can be. I mean, like say when we've been to Willow Springs for previous POC finales, Joe, that these two have always been in the mix, and you can never count them out.
DJ is just their Dylan BJ ship name, I guess you could say. But
it's the POC bromance.
Yes. As we ride on board with BJ Fulton, this is currently for the lead, but we don't know if it will be after the pit stops, because we've been watching Dylan reel in Blake Sams, has already taken his stop and is back out running in 5th. And we'll watch the lap times between them to see if he is keeping pace with them. Of course, the in and out lap's going to be a little bit harder to compare. Like a bit of a wiggle maybe from BJ as he loses ground from Dylan coming out of the Ducks Bill.
Yeah, the pit lane total time for Blake was nearly 25.5 seconds, and Dylan at the moment is 21.6 seconds ahead. So he's got to really make it count. But the big question is, are they going to both go into pit lane? The answer is yes for Dylan, no for BJ. I did say that with him sticking behind Dylan for quite a time, it was strategic, more to the point. So we're now going to see how long it takes for Dylan to put fuel in the Porsche, and that is going to put him behind Blake, as Blake's coming through the final corner now and is going to cross the stripe. So Dylan, oh well, he's it's going to be a few seconds behind, I'm afraid, as he manages to dive out. 26.4 seconds transit time, and then of course as soon as you exit out of the pit lane, you can straight away gun it and go up to full speed. But well, it might not be as big a disadvantage that he might have, but the time is rapidly running out. We've got just 12 minutes and 20 to go. But credit to BJ Fulton, at the moment in front of Blake Sams. Well, it's still not going to be enough, and I think that's going to put him behind Dylan. So when Jad Duncan dives into pit lane, then the order's going to reset itself to where it was previously.
Yeah, it looks a little bit about where it was when they pitted. I think Dylan was slightly closer, but they were almost identical, both in cone to cone and into pit stall time. So there must have been something in the in and out laps that made the difference between them. 2.7 seconds that Dylan has to catch up in about 11 and a half minutes, while BJ Fulton will finally pit in. Now, he was a lot closer to Dylan Scott than Scott was to Sams. So this could potentially change spots if we see a short pit stop time for the 82.
And he's now in the top right-hand side of our screens, and he's just hit his marks in the pit lane. So if this is a really, really close, this is going to be very, very close, as now BJ just lights up the rear tyres, and that was a very, very quick pit stop, 24.1, and he's just made, I did say it might happen. Blake Sam's going to be the faster car coming out of Curva de Sol, and BJ Fulton, wheel to wheel on the exit of pit road. He's right up the rear of the number 4. Great call by BJ Fulton to stay out that additional lap longer and go, right, I've got an opportunity here. So Blake Sams went, well, he'll probably be thinking, damn it, he's had a quicker pit stop than me, he stayed out longer.
Here's the thing, though. His pit stop being about a second and a half quicker does beg the question, did he underfuel it, or was he just better on getting that fuel in the car? So Blake Sams has the lead, but at a much smaller margin than what we saw before. We don't know how experienced Blake is on these pit stops. Is he used to cutting it as close? I'd say with him being similar to Dylan Scott, to Jad Duncan, it's more BJ Fulton that needs to be worried in this situation, because he is the outlier.
And also the fact if Blake makes a little bit of a mistake there, coming out of Jungsound into Savida's boxes. So it's one thing he doesn't want to do at this late stage of the race, to dirty his tyres as we head into the final quarter of the race itself. But yeah, here we go. Could this be the move that might bring BJ Fulton to the race lead? He goes to the outside of Blake Sams, who goes later on the brakes into the centre S's, and Blake just parks it on the racing line. A good attempt there by BJ to sort of give Blake an idea of saying, look, you're not just going to run away with this. And he does not want to be going wide out of Curva de Sol. That's the big thing. But if they start really battling tooth and nail in the next 5 minutes, then there's an opportunity for Dylan to really close that distance up. But still, that's a big amount of time at 2.6 seconds.
And he had a big bobble there coming off of turn 4. That allows BJ to catch him back up, but it's hard to pass coming into the horseshoe, so he can't do it here. And you know who's probably cheering them on right now is Dylan Scott, saying, yeah, keep attacking him like that. That's great. That's perfect. That gives me a chance to run both of you down.
Exactly. And the gap has already started to being eroded away. I mean, the gap was at 1.8 seconds between BJ and Dylan. So the more that they fight, the more that he will be rubbing his hands with glee in a metaphorical sense, because it's two hands on the wheels. Don't forget Dylan, whilst you're racing around here at Interlagos. But he'll be like thinking, yeah, there's an opportunity here for me to also contest the win. And considering the first phase of the race, the first half until he pitted, Blake was running away with it, with no doubt at all. But he's going to find that these two drivers behind him, they know how to push the envelope and go for the W, and I think Blake is just going to have to try and hold on as long as he can, because we've got 8 minutes to go, and with a 1:33, I think we've probably got about 5 or 6 laps left to go in the race. So anything can happen here at Interlagos, Joe. As big run wide coming out of turn 3 at the Curva de Sol by Blake. So BJ now will try and close that gap up once again, but still the gap between BJ and Dylan is around about that 2-second mark. But it's Blake now is finding he's got a little bit of pressure that he didn't have in the first half of the race, and that is quite crucial. If you can lead from pole position and check out, fine. Can you lead, check out after the pit stop phase, then find you've got pressure from someone who's undercut you on the pit lane strategy, and then hold on? That's going to be the big test for Blake here.
What kind of mental fortitude does he have? And also, I keep wondering, because we saw him struggle in this sector, the sector 2. It was relatively consistent. Oh, and again, look at the tail wag on that thing. Did he set it up with maybe a little bit too small a downforce? Is this a car that is slower through this part where it's hard to pass, so that he has an advantage here on the run down the main straight?
I want to have that nice compromise between low downforce for outright speed in these Porsche 902.2 Cup cars, but then you also want to have that handling through the middle sector. So you've got to make an easy compromise. As on the indicated speedometer, 161, 162 miles an hour. BJ Fulton to the outside here at the Center S's, and again, he's tried it. He's tried going to the outside. He's done that twice now. And now he's got to think, right, let's think outside the box here. How can I put the frighteners on Blake? Because I know he's making mistakes with me right on his 6, and that is the crucial thing. Because we've seen quite a few wobbles, and I think in the middle sector, that seems to be Blake's nemesis at the moment, whereas BJ's just that little bit quicker.
Gaining time on him, coming down towards the horseshoe, but still cannot find a way through. You can sometimes pull a sneak attack here into SA. Oh, he gets very, very close, nearly touching the rear bumper of that car. There's another mistake there from Blake Sams as the car slides wide, coming out of Pinarino. He covers the inside of the duck spill, knowing he's a bit vulnerable, and no chance for BJ Fulton that time into there. He is getting mistakes out of the number 4 car. Can he get it at just the right time to where he can find a corner to attack on? Or is Blake managing this so that he only makes the mistakes where there's no way through from the 82?
4 laps to go now, Joe, as we are fast approaching the final 5 minutes of the race here for round 2 of the Porsche Owners Club Sim Racing League here at Interlagos. And again, this time, well, Blake decides to go high to the outside at turn 1. Not allowing BJ to throw his Hail Mary like he's done over the last couple of laps, but still, nevertheless, the amount of pressure that BJ Fulton is putting on Blake Sams at the moment is seeing that the number 4 soaking it up like the proverbial sponge, but one wrong move, as you rightly said, could put Blake Sams at the behest of BJ Fulton, whereas Dylan Scott hasn't really been able to chase them, as again another mistake by Blake coming out of turn 4 into turn 5 of the Ciudad del Lago, and BJ trying to cover off into Ferradura and now La Regina as we run on board with the number 4 car with the exhaust camera view. You can just see BJ's just putting the car in different places as Blake is just trying to defend, and that was a little bit too tight of an apex. Can this possibly give the signs to BJ Fulton saying, right, I've got him where I want him, but at the meantime that gap between BJ and Dylan has closed up. It's now 2 seconds give or take, but Dylan I don't think is going to be in contest for this race as we go through up the hill once again through Sevillana's boxes into Arquibacandas, the bleachers, Yeah, it's going to be a close one to call, but 3 laps to go.
And interestingly, Dylan Scott has been back and forth on whether or not he has been quicker than them. So, yeah, he kind of needs them to continue to fight as cracks show in the armor of the number 4 car. Sams covers the inside, coming down into the Senna S. And BJ Fulton can't do anything with it, but he tries to set up the exit here. Look at him get that wider entry, and that gives him so much speed. Can he do it? No, he goes way too far to the outside, off of the Curva del Sol, and that cost him what could have been a crucial moment.
But there's still time left in the books here, as Rob Leclerc has just been given a black flag, which he's currently serving as we speak, so probably hit his incident points limit. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, Blake has just got to keep his head on calm shoulders at the moment, just not panic, and just hope that BJ Fulton makes a mistake in his own right to give him that sort of like light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And the gap is now nearly half a second as they will go into the last bit of the midfield section here at Sector 2, down the hill through into Margulo and then to Jungsao, and then it's that long run up the hill, and it's always going to be the person that's chasing that's going to have the slipstream advantage. And deeper on the brakes goes BJ Fulton as up the hill they go. It's going to be 2 to go at the end of this lap. We're on lap 25, 27 laps set to be completed here at Interlagos, and now BJ Fulton gets the tow he needs.
Keep saying that he was trying the Hail Mary. Will it come down to the last lap, and will it look a little bit more like a 2-point conversion, having to get aggressive and just charge his way through across the line, across the threshold? He gets close through turn 1, but he has to stay put in P2 once again. Last time he went a little bit far to the outside. Again, he seems to struggle in the wake of Blake Sams coming through turn 3.
Yeah, as they head down the Reta Posta for the penultimate time, it's just going to be a case of, I think BJ might have to throw caution to the wind here, Joe, and try for something that Blake Sams might not see coming, and that is crucial in racing, that if you can pick your moment where you know that you've got the possible opportunity of traction at a point where the person in front doesn't believe that there's traction there, you can really grip it and rip it and go hell for leather. But at this moment, well, it looks like the way things are going, Blake Sams is going to be, you know, nearly 2.7 miles away from his second straight win of the opening 2 races here in season 1 for 2026 for POC Sim Racing. So he's got one more lap to go, but can BJ Fulton really put the pressure on him, as Dylan Scott has decided, you know what, I'll pick up the points, I'll pick up P3, and he's now a big chunk of time behind BJ, 10 seconds to the matter of fact.
He must have made a mistake this lap. I went and checked his lap times because I saw the same thing, and he had a spin of some sort. Meanwhile, as we get the white flag for 1 to go, we'll see what happened to Dylan Scott in the replay. That was into Ferradura. The horseshoe claims another victim as he skitters off into the runoff. Meanwhile, BJ Fulton right behind Blake Sams. I also wonder, how close are they to the incident limit? We've been seeing both of them abuse the track limits quite a bit, and it's only 17 before you get a drive-through penalty around here. They surely have got to be getting a little bit dangerous with that.
Probably why there's been no Hail Marys or throwing caution to the wind here in the dying stages. But it's been more the case of crossing the T's, dotting the I's. There was nearly a window of opportunity there for BJ Fulton, who's going to dive to the inside, and that might be him through, not quite.
He nearly bangs doors with the number 4. Blake Sims retains the lead, at least for now, but he is under threat. BJ Fulton, he's throwing haymakers, not Hail Marys, trying to see if he can find some sort of opening to take the win away and keep him from going back-to-back at the start of his Porsche Owners Club Series career. Blake Sams a bit off of the apex. Will that make him vulnerable down the back straight? BJ Fulton could maybe slingshot past, but it doesn't look like he has the speed. Blake Sams, as he accelerates up the hill and towards the start-finish line, is going to make himself a double winner here in the POC.
And it was not by much. At the end of it, BJ Fulton got to within 0.27 of a second. But Blake Sams, well, he's proved that he can start from the second row and win. And now he's proved that he can lead, come out in the lead after the pit stop, come under serious pressure. Dylan Scott takes P3, Jad Duncan, Michael Bolton round out your top 5. Dustin Heidel with another strong showing as Jim Garamani comes across the line in the 11th. Chris Marciniak, our GT4 champion from last season, well, even he's finding to get to grips with the 992.2 Cup car. He's going to come out of the final corner and take P7 ahead of Mark Rondeau, who's got Adam Abrams behind him. Larry Haas is due to finish in 10th position. Rob Leclerc finishing in 12th. Mark Morales is due to cross the line a lap down out of the lead, off of the leaders, and unfortunately for Alan Watts, out on lap 16. But Mark Rondeau is going to power up the hill. Marciniak takes 7th. Rondeau is going to take 8th. But, well, it was going to be a case of unstoppable force versus an immovable object between Sams and Fulton, and the number 4 came out on top.
And wildly, out of all of this, we had a lot of action between Sams, Fulton, Scott, Duncan, Bolton, all race long. The only driver to change position out of those 5 is Bolton with a gain of 1. Everybody else finished exactly where they gridded up. So sometimes the score doesn't tell the entire story of the match. And that was certainly the case here today, as Blake Sams was your winner, with BJ Fulton coming home in 2nd position. Dylan Scott, P3. Jad Duncan was 4th, and Michael Bolton, P5. It was Dustin Heindel in 6th position, Christopher Marciniak in 7th, Mark Rondeau 8th, and Adam Abrams in 9th. Larry Haas rounds out your top 10. From them, Jeremy Garamani finished in 11th, Robert Leclerc 12th, Morales 13th with his penalty, and Alan Watts, unfortunately, our only DNF of today's race. Wow. This is looking to be a very good season. We'll see how Blake Sams feels about this season, because he's joined us for a little bit of a chat after victory number 2. Blake, congratulations. I have to admit, I was more watching to see whether or not Dylan Scott would catch you in the pit stop. Suddenly, you had a mirror full of BJ Fulton. Was that a surprise?
It was a huge surprise. The lap before, when Dylan came out and he was, a couple seconds behind, I thought I crushed my pit stop and I was pulling away from these guys. I know that Dylan made the pass on BJ, so I assumed that BJ was just a little bit slower. But when he came out right next to me, I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. These things are insane with the draft. I knew I was never going to be able to get rid of them.
Well, talking about the aerodynamics of the car, we noticed that it seemed like there were mistakes here and there, and they frequently seemed to come in the middle sector of the lap. Did you set it up with a little bit less wing?
So we're actually all running the same setup. That is all just my errors, user error there. I made mention at Spa that this isn't my favorite track. It's a little too technical for me, and that really started to show towards the end of the tires that I was just pushing the fronts too hard, and I kept sliding through a couple of those tight right-handers.
You did a great job, though. I mean, you came away with the win in the end, but like you said, maybe some mistakes here and there. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So what's your takeaway from this race? Do you feel like you learned a few things?
Yeah, it seems like the other guys are really managing their stints a little bit better. I need to work on, preserving the tires, working on that last little bit. My last 10 minutes of the race were nothing but defense, and I feel like if I could just, manage the tires a little bit better, I could be a little bit better on the offense and stay ahead and not be looking at my mirror so much for these guys.
Well, again, you did a great job. You dealt with immense pressure and came away shining. Congratulations on win number 2.
Thank you very much.
Blake Sams, your victor here today at Interlagos. And he was chased home by BJ Fulton, and Alex has caught up with him.
Oh, BJ, good evening. A pretty good strategy call there to go out there that little bit longer. We did notice that you were sticking behind Dylan for quite a time to help with that fuel saving, and to see you come out right behind Blake with just a handful of minutes to go, you must have thought, right, I've got a real good opportunity of showing this man what we are capable of here at POC, and you gave it all you got, didn't you?
Yeah, sure did. It was kind of two races for me. The whole first half, I was just kind of cruising and managing my tires and fuel, saving a ton in the draft behind Dylan. I didn't think I would make up quite that much time in the pit, but it was pretty nice to see Blake right next to me coming out of the pits.
And then also towards the end of the race, you know, we saw you try the old round the outside twice in two successive laps, and still Blake was able to park it on the apex. It was just a case of saying, well, I've got to go for it. I've got nothing to lose, but still with second place, you gain a lot of points tonight.
Yeah, for sure. It's real hard to pass here, and once you go for that inside line defense on turn one, I can't really get my nose in there. So I just tried to pinch him down the inside on turn one, so he would have a bad run coming out of turn three, but it never was quite enough.
Mm-hmm. But still, it's still great to see that there are close battles up and down the order, especially at the front end of the field. How are you finding it with these new 992.2 Cup cars after switching from the GT3Rs last season?
I like it quite a bit. It's not too much different. The suspension I find is a little bit bouncier, and I really wish I could do some setup tuning. But it's not too bad at all. I'm starting to get used to it, and I really enjoy it a lot more than the old Cup cars. That's for sure.
Brilliant. Well, BJ, congratulations on your second place victory, just finishing just under 3/10 behind our race winner Blake Sams. Well done tonight.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Sadly, don't seem to have Dylan Scott here for the finish. Apologies. So we won't get to chat to our third place finisher. I'd love to hear his thoughts on that race, but maybe another day as we close up with a big thank you to our sponsors, which include Porsche. There is no substitute. Find out more at Porsche.com, and Top Gun MG, helping financial advisors be the best of the best. Contact them today at TopGunMG.com. Also, a thanks to the team today, Alex, Christian, and Dougie. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. The next time out when we're racing, it is going to be at Road Atlanta. That'll be Monday, February 9th at 11 p.m. Eastern to kick off our first U.S. track here for the series. We've got more series racing on the channel, including the Skip Barber series. That'll be at Phillip Island coming up a little bit later on this week. Be sure to check out all of our broadcasts that we have listed here. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.
This is iRacing.